Hey, welcome back to Geometry. Here's Chapter 3. In the previous video, 3.1, we talked about the different angle relationships and when we have a transversal through two other lines or three other lines, two or more lines. And so today we're going to talk about what is unique about those relationships when those lines that the transversal goes through are parallel to each other. So first of all, we're going to talk about corresponding angles. Now remember, corresponding angles, we talked about how they're in the same corner of the intersection. So if we look at the lines intersecting here, and we go and label them, so like angle 1 and angle 5 are in the same corner. So those corresponding angles are actually congruent when the two lines are parallel to each other. And I also wanted to say, feel free to hit pause, or remind you guys to hit pause anytime you want to, so you can fill out your notes as we go, because I'm going to kind of keep going along here, okay? So then as we go along, 2 is congruent to 6. Corresponding angles or corresponds with angle 6, so they're congruent to each other. And here's the rest of them, okay? So you get that. One thing I want to show you here is I have 4 different colors here, and what actually happens, we're going to find out that all these angles, out of 8 of these angles, we only have 2 different measurements. So we really get just 2 colors, if you want to think of it that way. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So you guys can watch that as we go. Alternate interior angles. You'll see the alternate interior angles, again, the same color, so they're going to be congruent to each other. Remember, interior are in between the 2 lines that are parallel to each other, and then they alternate. They're going to be on opposite sides of the transversal, so they're on opposite sides of line L in this case. Alternate exterior, exact same concept, except we're just talking about exterior angles. So now we're talking about angle 1 and angle 7, and they're alternate on the opposite sides of the transversal, but yet same color. And then 2 and 8. Consecutive interior angles. Consecutive interior angles. Now these are opposite colors, okay? But opposite colors are actually going to be supplementary to each other. Because remember, going back to corresponding angles, if we looked at angle 2, which would be right above angle 3, angle 2 and angle 6 would be congruent to each other. Well, we would know 2 and 3 add up to 180, so therefore we know 6 and 3 add up to 180. So these are consecutive interior angles. Same thing with 4 and 5 here. Now consecutive exterior or same side exterior, same thing, opposite colors. So they're going to add up to 180. Now the colors, I should stress that not everything's going to be color coded for you, but if you get to see that pattern and you start seeing how that works, I think it'll make it a little easier for you too. So these are our supplementary ones. They're the ones that add up to 180. So 3 of them so far are congruent to each other. 2 of them are supplementary to each other. All right. So here's what we're going to talk about real quick. So the opposite colors, and I didn't want this to come in so slow, but we'll go through it really quick. There we go. So, so what angle relationships do we have so far? Well, if we look at angle 1 and angle 3, they're same color. They're both red. Okay. Well, what's the relationship there? You guys know that. We've talked about in chapter 1 and chapter 2, vertical angles. So angle 1 is congruent, and we'll do that in red so we keep it the same. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, and just like angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. So those are our vertical angles. Okay. What other ones are congruent to each other? If we look at angle 4 and angle 6, they're same color, so therefore they're going to be congruent to each other. And what is the relationship there? Well, those are interior. They're in between and they're alternating. So we're going to call those interior or alternate interior angles. Alt int angles. The other set would be angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. All right. All right. And last set, you see some more on the outside. For example, angle 1 is congruent to angle 7, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 8. And those are going to be same or alternate exterior angles. And then we go back, you guys remember a linear pair? Well, a linear pair, if we look at angle 1 and angle 2, those are a linear pair. So the measurement of angle 1, and notice I put M there to talk about the measurement. We're not saying they're congruent to each other, so we're not talking about the angles anymore. Plus the measurement of angle 2 is equal to 180. Okay? And we could go through a lot of those different ones. We could say measurement of angle 5 plus, oops, I want to do that in green. Slow down. Plus the measurement of angle 8, let's say. Well, we know those are going to equal 180. They're a linear pair. Okay? So what are some opposite colors from each other? Well, we would say, what about 4 and 5? Okay? We got measurement of angle 4 plus the measurement of angle 5. And they're going to equal 180. Why? Well, what's the relationship? Those two angles are consecutive interior angles. And then another 181 is, like we talk about angle 1 and angle 8. Measurement of angle 1 plus measurement of angle 8. And we know that's going to equal 180 because they're opposite colors in this design. And this is only true when angle or lines M and N are parallel to each other. Okay, that has to be true. But these are same side or consecutive same side exterior angles. All right. So these are 6 of them. Now we talked about 7 on in 3.1, and we just went through 5 of them in the previous notes here today. So which one are we forgetting about? Well, those are the same corner. So we also talk about, angle 1 is congruent. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 5, and those angles are corresponding angles. All right. So those are the 7 types of angles you need to know. So we'll see what that does here for us in these next little slides. Okay. So this will be a good slide for you to pause, maybe make your own little note sheet on this. This is not part of your notes, so you might have to do that separately. Perpendicular. This one's pretty easy. Is if 2 lines are parallel to each other and the line is perpendicular to one of them, well, corresponding angles would tell us that it has to be perpendicular to the other one, or they both have to be 90 degrees. So if it's perpendicular to one, it's going to be perpendicular to the other parallel line. This one I've always done a little differently, but actually I read the book once and I was like, hey, what a concept. We can read a book and learn something. So I think the book has a little bit easier way to do this, so I'm going to show you that way. The book says, hey, why don't we draw a third parallel line? If we're going to try to figure out what this angle is here, we got to find out angle RTV. Remember, T is the vertex of that angle, so RTV. And what the book tells me tells us to draw a third line that's parallel. And forgive my drawing. Remember, everything I draw is perfectly straight. Okay? But if we do that, hopefully you see our alternate interior angles. So if this is 65 here, then this has to be 65. If this angle on top is 60, then this angle has to be 60. Well, what's that angle going to be altogether? Well, it's going to be 125. So why don't you try this one? See if you can draw a third angle. I will say on this one, go with what the numbers say and not what it looks like. I guess this one looks okay. It does get stretched out in some other notes. So once you tried this, hopefully you drew this parallel line in. And the trickier one with this one is, it's actually going to be this angle is the alternate interior angle to that one. So we need to know what this angle is. Well, together these two equal 180. So this would have to be 30. So this would have to be 30. Again, over here, this angle and this angle are congruent because of alternate interior angles. Again, we need to know that this equals 180. So this is 30 and this is 30. So that's not too bad. So together 30, 30, we get 60. All right. And the last one here. Now, the last one here, if you look at the letters of it, and we'll go quickly here. We know that angle 5 and angle 6 are congruent because they're alternate exterior angles. But when we do that, we have an X and we have a Y. So it's probably not a good idea to set those equal to each other. But angle 5 and angle 7 are corresponding angles and they're congruent to each other. So we could actually set these two equal to each other because corresponding angles, when the lines are parallel to each other, are congruent. As I think of it, one thing that's missing from this is to say these two lines are parallel. So that's how we're going to relate angle 6 into this too. So that's something that need to be told to us. But anyways, so angle 5, angle 7, their measurements are equal to each other, or their angles are congruent to each other. So we can substitute that 2x minus 10 in for angle 5, and we can set the x plus 15, substitute that in for angle 7, and now just solve for your x. So we get x equals 25. So there's our x value, and all we're doing is find the x. We could find the measurements, and in this case we kind of have to, because we need to know angle 5 and angle 6 are congruent to each other. So I need to know what angle 5 is. So 2 times 25 would be 50, minus 10 would be 40. So then this angle over here would have to be 40, but again, that doesn't help me with y. So I know the measurement of angle 6 has to equal 40. Substitute for y minus 25 equals 40. Now I do this a little differently. I like to divide. You could distribute this. I just like to divide get rid of my 4, because if I want to get the y by itself anyways, I don't want to take anything to that y. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. That's going to give me 10 over here. And then add 25. So my y equals 35. So there's our x and our y. So that's our problems for 3-2. And you can go ahead and do your worksheets and then submit those on Schoology. And make sure you come with questions when you come back to school. All right. See you then.